And last but not least, all the... No, not last but not least. Hey everybody, sit down around the hearth, grab a frosty mug of ale. Welcome to the Lion's Pride Tavern, where we discuss all things Azeroth. Hey everybody, welcome to the Lion's Pride Tavern podcast number 38. Tonight we talk about our weekend raid and, wow, those token prices. But before all that, let's start off with introductions. I'm your host, Fafford. I play a Dwarven Beastmaster Hunter in the awesome game World of Warcraft. Next up is JobUui.
Hi, I'm JobUui. I play a Worgen Frost Mage.
And Lorelei.
Howdy, it's Lorelei, your Night Elf Fury Warrior.
And Epistle.
Hey, I'm Epistle. I play a Draenei Protection Paladin.
So do we actually play or are we actually becoming our tunes? That's a good question. But Tapachino won't be able to answer that tonight because her power supply blew up on her computer. So she didn't even get to raid with us this weekend. Sorry, Tap.
Mister.
Yep, we sure could have used them druid heals.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, JobUui, let's start it off. Why don't you go ahead and give us a recap on our raid this weekend?
Okay, so on Friday night, we did make a change to our itinerary, and we decided we would do the last two bosses of normal. So we did Elisand and Gul'dan on normal, and took them both out, clean and sweet. Moved on to heroic, and we blasted through Scorpirion, Chromatic Anomaly, Trilliax, and we got through Star Augur, all on our first night of raiding. It was a really solid run. Saturday we came back and we took on Croesus and downed Croesus on our first attempt, and then we went after Tichondrius, and we had a little bit of trouble at first with Tichondrius. It is a progression boss for us, and but then we changed some strategy ideas and tried a couple of different things and managed to get him down. It was a pretty darn good night.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think there was much rejoicing.
Yeah, it was a tight thing. I mean, we were like 10 seconds from Berserk.
It was close, yeah.
But we like it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it would, like, somebody said like 10 seconds to Berserk, and I was looking at the whole situation. I'm like, just everybody hit the boss. Hit him as hard as you can.
I had, what's the green circle that goes around you that you're supposed to pop? What's that called?
Searing Brand.
Searing Brand. I had Searing Brand on for like the last 10 minutes of the fight. It seemed like forever.
Yeah, well, that was part of the strategy change, was we weren't going to pop those in the last phase against him, and just concentrate on other stuff and stay spread out, because they don't do any damage to you or anything. It's just you got to avoid people.
Yeah. And you get more and more and more of them.
Yeah, for a total of 8. You get 8 total per phase that you're fighting Tichondrius.
Very cool. All right, so I was listening to the Goblin Goldcast. I hate bringing these guys up again. I talk about them every weekend. But one of them was getting ready to go on a raid. And he'd never raided with his guild group before because he's never on during the time when they raid. So he said, I go over and I listen to the Lion's Pride Tavern because they talk about their raids and the mechanics that they do behind it. And I thought, what a brilliant idea. So thanks, Mac, for bringing that up. So what we're going to do tonight is just a little bit different. We're still going to talk about our raid, but we're also going to talk about the mechanics behind the boss. And what each one of us, because we have a range, we have a melee, and we have a tank. Don't have a healer tonight, but that's all right. Healing, they just stay out of stuff and, dot. At least with our druids.
Well, hot.
Yeah, hot.
Yep.
I like that better. So let's start off. Should we just start off with Scorpirion?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Sure.
JobUui, as arranged, Scorpirion, and we'll go ahead and talk about the heroic, because that's where we're at. There's no sense going back and talking about normal. I mean, if people are going to listen to us for this, and we're talking about heroic, and they're just doing normals, they're going to be ahead of the game. So, Jobui, in your opinion, as arranged, what are the most important things to stay out of or to deal with during Scorpirion?
Well, for starters, the real keys for range and Scorpirion, which I don't think it differs a lot from melee, but it basically the first rule is don't step outside the ring, because you don't want to pull ads.
So let's explain it just in case nobody's ever. I mean, not that
Right.
they should never been in there, but which ring
There-
are you talking about?
Well, there's a big ring on the floor that Scorpirion is fought on, and around the walls of the room are a bunch of little ads. And if you step outside the wall, you'll draw, or step outside the ring, you'll draw those little ads off the wall, and then the whole group will have to deal with whatever you just pulled. So, you don't want to step out there. And then basically what I try and do is as his shards of his armor come off and they stick in the ground, they look like blue crystals, is I go over and I just position myself behind one of them, just so I'm already prepared for when he does his blowback thing later. And then I watch, I hit Scorpirion as hard as I can until a group of ads comes out. And as soon as the group of ads come out, I start hitting those with as much AoE as I can muster and try and kill them. There's a big red scorpion, and then there are smaller ones, but I focus on the smaller ones first, and then I'll start hitting the larger red scorpion. And then I watch the boss. I keep an eye on the boss because if he faces me, he does this frontal attack that shoots across the room and it will stun me and do a bunch of damage. So if he happens to face in my direction where I'm hiding behind one of these crystals, I just move out of his beam range, which is basically the width of his claws. So I just get out of there and I wait for him to do his blast, and then I go back to the same crystal, or if there's another handy crystal nearby, I'll hide behind that one instead and just stay there. And if there's no ads, I attack the boss, but if there's ads, I kill them. And basically, and then he'll do his pushback thing, and I'm already behind a crystal, so I don't get pushed back to the wall, thrown back there, because if you get pushed back, you will draw ads. And then I just sit there in DPS and hide behind crystals and avoid getting blasted, and the whole fight. And that's pretty much the whole deal for me.
Awesome, Lorelei.
Well, as melee, you really have to be able to move quickly. And with Scorpirion, and I don't know, Pistol can talk on this. I don't know if it moves on its own. Does it randomly spin around?
You mean when it does its frontal stun?
Or anytime, because sometimes I know for me, I try to stay on its butt, and that way I can also take care of the ads that come in and do my AoE. But sometimes he just spins around, and I'm not sure if he does that on his own or if that's you and Gerard
Yeah,
moving him.
that's Darg. That's his role in the fight. If you don't move, you end up getting this sort of stacking electrical debuff, which will
Oh.
kill you. So he has to move him, but he moves him back and forth in a certain range.
Okay, well, because I
So
didn't know
small
sometimes
rotations.
it's almost like he spins in a circle. But for melee, it's very important that not only while you're DPSing, you have to anticipate when or where the boss is going to move and be ready to do that. Be ready to run through him, know when you can do that or when you have to move to the side. And I try to stay near some of the crystals so that I can get behind them quickly and not get shot out the side. And it's a lot of paying attention, and you really have to know where you are, where the crystals are, where the boss is going to go, where the ads are coming from, and it's a lot to pay attention to at one time.
Yeah, because in addition to that, he will turn and do his stun,
You
and
have
you
to
don't want
know
to be
where
in front of
that is.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, and you also don't want to be getting hit by his frontal attack
claws,
because
yeah.
that's just nasty, bad news for anybody who's not a tank.
Right.
Yeah,
So that's true with any boss. Is just
Yeah.
anticipation. It was really important back when we did what was his name? Thok, the dinosaur. And you really had to.
Great memories.
One thing that sometimes people would comment on me about is they're like, how come you go somewhere and you turn and you face a certain way? Well, I know if I have to go down the hallway, I want to be facing the hallway because I don't have time to stop and think and turn around and then run because you're already dead. So it's all about knowing where to position yourself for what's going to happen a few seconds later.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lorelai, because room position at sometimes may be your best thing to do. Now, mages have their new ability now, or got their ability back, where they can blink in whatever direction they want to. They're so special.
Yep.
Right.
But
And
us non-mages,
yeah, you have to. Well, I have a heroic leap, but I also have to know when is it really good to use it in a fight and when do you just not want to mess with it? Because you can leap right into something bad.
Yep. I do the same thing with disengage. You got to really watch. You got to
I
watch
don't.
behind you.
Yeah, I don't use it very often. I heroic leap when Croesus is getting ready to break the bridge. When I hear the timer go off, I just go ahead and I leap as far back as I can, and then I don't have to ever worry about getting, knocked into the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say on Scorpirion though, as a mage, blink is something that you have to be really careful with, because it's not a really big play area, and so if I'm gonna blink away from something, I have to do it basically kind of like across or at an angle across the circle. Otherwise, I could easily just blink right out of the circle and start pulling ads. So I have to be pretty careful with that.
Yeah, kind of the same thing with the hunters when they use barrage.
Yeah,
Can
you
you
want
get
to bring those
ads
ads
with
in.
barrage?
I don't use barrage. So after I said that, I was just thinking, oh, maybe they don't, because
I haven't seen anybody use it on that fight. That's pretty noticeable.
yeah, I use multi-shot, but multi-shot goes right to those specific tunes in your frontal area, and that's it, or the mobs, and that's it. But
Well, I'm not certain that those scorpions along the wall are really hittable by spells, because I know that when I was playing Fire Mage, I would do my Dragon's Breath facing, and they definitely would have been in range and would have gotten hit by that.
okay,
And
well, maybe
and
that's
and
why.
they didn't pull in when I was using it, so.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, Epistle, Scorpion on tanking.
Yeah, thanks to an increase in gear levels, it's not as scary as it was. But here's why you don't want to pull those extra scorpions or the scorpids all around the outside. As a tank, it's a tricky thing to get all their attention, and sometimes it's a little delay, especially if you have more than one group. And even my wonderful shield toss, which picks up so many mobs, isn't always up, especially with multiple groups, and sometimes it just doesn't catch them all. To make it trickier too, the other tank has to pick up one of the specific ads, the red ad, because it's a kind of nasty dynamic that they have if I get all of those ads. But here's the problem: you pull all those little scorpions, and they gradually do a stacking debuff, and it's the death of 1,000 cuts. It's one after another, stacking debuff, increasing amount of damage to the point where it becomes unsurvivable. Now, as I say though, with an increase in gear, I can now handle 2, maybe 3 groups even without having to burn all my cooldowns, which is what I used to have to do to make it through. So if you get knocked back, you could very easily, if your tank isn't geared in a raid, you could very easily wipe your whole raid, because the tank could go down, and yeah, then it gets really bad from there because those ads will chew on the next thing with threat. So got to be really careful.
And so even as a tank, you have to get behind the crystals, right?
Yep, tanks get knocked out too, and I can't afford to bring in a bunch. That's sometimes trickier actually for Darg than for me, because I can, if I've got all the mobs under control and I'm avoiding his frontal stun, I'm usually able to keep an eye on what's coming in and grab them and pull them behind one of the crystals without too much difficulty.
Okay. And just as a precursor, we'll probably should throw this in. There are some add-ons if you guys are going to raid that you have, in my opinion, you have to have. As a DPS, as a healer, as a tank, as a melee, it doesn't make any difference. You've got to have at least Deadly Boss Mods, DBM, and in my opinion, again, and you guys can voice your opinions, I think you should also have GTFO, which stands
Definitely.
for Get the Fudge
Blink, blink,
Out of whatever you're standing in. Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody
I tend
got
to agree.
anything else? I mean, I've got a lot of little things as a raid leader that I've got going on too. And I actually, as we live stream, I actually saw a comment in our chat that they were like, "Oh, look at those Americans! They love their add-ons."
I do love my add-ons.
Dude,
Thank you
God,
very
I can't
much.
deal with them with that when we have an
can-
expansion and they're gone.
Canadians love them too, eh?
I hate that
Yeah.
part of it.
You
He
know,
was from the UK.
I would say that, that weak auras is not necessarily essential, but it's a super big help for me on a lot of fights, especially on fights where there's something that's going to get on me that I really need to be aware of, that DBM might not notify me as well as I would like. And then I can make a weak aura that tells me when I get that debuff, and it just helps me not kill other people with whatever debuff explosion-y thing that gets on me. A good example would be Gul'dan when he puts a spell on you that causes you to drop fire. I forget what it's called, and that one, like things like that. So I find weak auras really handy for that. It takes a little bit of extra work to get those set up, but I really like that.
Yeah, because weak auras is a very, very powerful tool. I use it to bring up my spells that I need that I should be shooting on cooldown all the time as a hunter.
Yeah,
and
I
I know
absolutely
you do too
use
as a
it
mage.
for that, but even for like boss mechanics, it can be super handy.
Yeah.
I'd actually also add having some kind of DPS meter feels to me like an essential piece, because if you're doing damage or healing, you actually want to know how you're doing and have some feedback. And it's nice to have your own one that you can monitor your own progress and not feel like you have to ask somebody else to tell you how you're doing. So I like to be able to see that for myself. Even as a tank, I want to know if I can, get that little more damage out or tweak a few things. That just speeds up a boss going down, and we're all better off.
And which one do you use?
I'm using Skada right now.
Okay.
I
How about
like
everybody
using. I use Skada too. It runs better than what was the other one? Now I can't remember
Details?
what- No.
Recount is what you're
Recount.
Yeah, I used to
Recount
use Recount,
sucks up
yeah.
a lot of your space and slows you down. Oh, I was gonna say I like to use Omen as a threat meter, so that if I somehow or if I charge in and I start pulling threat, I know as a night elf I automatically hit Shadow Meld, and that takes it off of me, so that I'm not one shot by the boss.
Yeah, that's a good idea, especially, as a player, if you're pretty high level and you're running with a lower level group, you may just, and I've done this with my mage, I pulled more threat than the tank could generate.
Yeah.
Just as a starter, and then he slowly gets it back. But I'm telling you, as a mage, it doesn't take much when that big boss comes over there and hits you in your little cloth armor.
Yeah.
It really hurts.
And
That's-
squish.
That's ice block time is what that is.
Right?
Yeah, the other one, that's kind of nice to have is, and Blizzard has made some effort in this, is to have something like tidy plates or Kui nameplates. Those kind of things are really great, and they kind of serve a purpose like the Omen threat meter, because it colors the bars of things differently and kind of gives you a visual representation of what's going to be coming after you or what's not coming after you currently, what you're engaged with, and all that. So I really like having a nameplate thing as well. And I use Kui nameplates. I used to use Tidy plates, but I've since switched to Kui nameplates.
I'm happy with tidy plates. I use that as a tank so I can see what's coming after me.
Yeah, I use tidy plates too, but I use it for an entirely different purpose. I use it so I can see which one I need to target, and then because you can click on the bar above its head rather than trying to click on the actual mob itself and get the right one, because I'm usually setting the skull if we have a priority target. So it's a lot easier that way because it's a bigger bar to hit.
Sure. They're both very similar. I think Kui nameplates is a little bit more customizable than Tidy plates is, but they're both very good.
Yeah, I'd recommend either one of those. All right, any other add-ons that I would call essential? Tidy plates, and a DPS meter, they're not really essential. You definitely got to have DBM and GTFO.
Yeah.
For anybody who raids. I mean, GTFO, you should have it if you're even doing dungeons.
Yeah, I think those two are pretty much the only essentials for raiding that you just absolutely should have them. But beyond that, yeah, but everything else, I mean, they're just things that might help you perform better or help you keep you alive longer, kind of thing.
Well, and then, the object of DPS is to do as much as you can, and progress up the meter a little bit, get ahead of your buddy at least, or stay above the tanks. That's always a good one.
That's important, yeah.
Yeah, it really lets me know, I'll watch, I'll glance over at my DPS meter occasionally just to see, am I doing as much as I should be? Am I doing it right? Basically. And if I'm doing it right, then I should see my name somewhere in that list, doing well. And if things have gone wrong, then, I just see myself dropping down in the charts there. And I'm like, I'm messing up. And sometimes that can alert me to, okay, I got to sharpen up my rotation a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and then as a raid leader, I use the DPS meter a lot for calling out who needs to be battle res. It's a little bit harder process because you got to look and see who's dead and remember their names. So it's good to have just a generic, good, easy to remember name, not like 15 letters, that are randomly thrown together.
Some sort of Murloc name.
Yeah, Murgle. Because then I can look over at the DPS meter, because you always want to bring up the highest DPS first. And sometimes, I only have it set to the top 10 people that you can see in the window, so I don't have the whole window going. But so if you're not in the top 10 and you're down and we've got a battle res ready to go, I may just call it a random name. And I think I got called on that last Saturday night's raid, because they're like, you kept calling me up, but I was like the lowest DPS. And I was like, I didn't have time to scroll down and look. I just saw the name and went, yeah, they're usually pretty good. Get them.
And that works sometimes too. In hectic moments, you may not have time to really examine the list and make an informed decision. You may just have to go with your gut.
Yeah, well, because there's sometimes, it's typically, when you're calling it out, you always call out definitely the tank, get the tank back up. A healer, because they're very vital. But then DPS is very fluctuating. But you also got to maintain, is this boss going to be tough enough that it's going to take out a tank? And do I save one battle res in case a tank goes down? I mean, there's a lot to it, but and there's a couple of things that can help you out with that, add-ons that will do that. But for the most part, just for the average player, definitely DBM, definitely GTFO. So, if you guys are thinking about getting into raiding, got to have those two add-ons. So.
I did notice that people have been trying to be helpful lately, and if they think they see who the top DPS is who's down, they'll tend to suggest the name, just to make your life a little easier, without saying, they won't say, get that person up, because that's not their call. That's the raid leader's call. But it's good to be maybe making a helpful suggestion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I had a really nice council session with our healers to let them know, it's the newer healers that don't recognize my voice, that we were having a problem with before, where somebody would call out something and they would do it, And they're like, oh, but that wasn't a raid leader. That was just somebody suggesting we should get somebody up. Maybe get this person up. So, but I did have a nice discussion with them, and they've been doing really well at it. I noticed they were suggesting to battle res during our Tichondrius fight, on our progression fight, and I looked down and I said, well, God, we only got one. And I really hate, I know we need DPS up, I know we need that healer up, but if a tank goes down, we're done, So it's tough calls to make, and they're split second decisions. Plus, I've got to throw my DPS out there at the same time. So, I'm just really glad I got one of those extra side controllers, the gaming pads, and it's such a 1, 2, 3 movement. So I'm just like rotating my keys, so it's brainless, so I can look at this other stuff. All right, let's move on to chromatic anomaly. Now, I know we do this one a little different, even though we're doing heroic. We're still kind of pushing the envelope on the cheese method. So, Jobui, there again, we're going to go back to ranged. What is important for you in this fight, so our listeners will know what to do?
Well, if you're using the cheese method, which is how we've been doing it, essentially what I try and do is initially as this fight starts out, I just hit the boss as hard as I can, and I stay a little bit back away from the boss, kind of away from the rest of the group a little bit, and I just hit him as hard as I can. And he'll occasionally throw these orbs out that will put like a flaming looking circle on the ground. It's like kind of a spirally orangey looking circle. And if one of those appears underneath me, I just move out from that. And I just keep attacking the boss until one of his ads comes up, and it'll come up to the left or to the right around the big circle, of the room. It's kind of a big donut shape or a torus. And so wherever I see that thing come up, I start heading in that direction as soon as I see it come up, and I try to get in range of it, and it's going to start casting a spell, and I try and interrupt that ahead of anybody else getting to it. Like I'll blink towards it, I'll speed boost towards it, with dark flight since I'm a worgen, and if I can interrupt it first, that just takes a little bit of pressure off because like the tanks have to run to it and whatnot. I kill that along with everybody else, and then that splits into 4 little ads, and I kill those with AoE, and I try and interrupt those when I can. I have a long interrupt time. It's 24 seconds, so I can only interrupt so often, but I do it as often as I can. And when they're down, then we go into our cheese mode, which is pretty much stack up right behind the boss, and I just unload everything I can at that point. We hit hero. I use my second potion because I pre-potted at the beginning, so I'll use my potion right there. I'll blow all my heavy damage cooldowns at that point, and just that I have available, and just do all I can to damage the boss. And lately, we've been pushing the boss pretty close to death, even on heroic at that point. And then eventually they'll break the boss out of the cheese mode, I guess, and then we'll have to go back to dodging stuff on the ground until the boss dies. And that there is one other thing that comes up that I have to do, which is occasionally I'll get a debuff I think it's called Time Bomb, and it's basically I have like a fuse basically that's lit, and I have to get as far away from everybody else as I can, because when that goes off, it's going to do a bunch of damage. So I just try and get away from the group, and then the bomb goes off. A lot of times I'll blink away a little bit, and then I'll just ice block and wait for the bomb to go off so it doesn't damage me either. And then I head back to the rest of the rest of the group and go back to attacking the boss.
Now, is that time bomb? Is that one that the further away, the less damage, or is it just got an aura around it?
No, it's like somewhere between 665,000 and 775,000 damage to all players, but the further away you are, the more the damage dissipates. So I just try and get away from everybody so that I don't do heavy damage. I've seen them go off right in the middle of the raid, and it's a heavy hit to the whole raid. Plus, that's going to eat healer mana. So I just try and get as far away as possible and then have it go off. And then I do less damage to everybody else.
Very cool. And did you talk about the taps blue balls?
Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah, I do. I do have to dodge those rings of balls that come out from the center. And for those, what I try and do is I try and get about 20 yards, 15 to 20 yards out from the center where they emit from the wall. And by then they create a large enough gap between them that I kind of face like I'm running around in a circle. And I line myself up so that I'm between two of them, and then I just let them pass by me. And then right after they pass by me, I just take a couple of steps forward or a couple of steps backwards, and then because they offset the balls. So the next so I'll be like right in line for another gap if I just take a couple of steps forward or a couple of steps backward, and then they'll pass right by without doing damage to me. In an emergency, I blink through them, but most of the time I just try and position myself so that I'm in line where a gap will be.
Yeah, because those gaps are not lined up. Like he was saying, you go through one and you have to either forward or back step to get into the gap of the next wave because they kind of intermix in between their gaps. So
yeah, they alternate, and some in heroic you'll get like multiple phases of those rings. So you sometimes have to go like forward and you move into a gap, and then a group goes by, then you move back a little bit, and another group goes by, then you have to move forward a little bit, and another group goes by. So sometimes you have to dodge more than just 2 rings.
And would you say those rings get wider as it goes out?
Yeah.
That they're closer together in the middle? Yeah.
That's why I move out about 15 to 20 yards, is because if I move out from where they originate, the gaps are slightly wider, so it's got a little bit more wiggle room for me to slip between the different balls that come out. You do have to be sort of careful. You don't want to get too far out though, because the rings slow down as they move away from their point of origination. So the rings will start to clump up as they reach, like 40 yards away from where they start. At the rings will start getting closer together again. So I find that the sweet spot somewhere between 15 to 20 yards.
Awesome. And Lorelei, how about you for melee?
Now, that's another fight where you have to watch where you put your feet because you're up with the boss so close. But what I like to do is I like to stay on the edge of the outer ring and fight from there. That way, you've got swirls of stuff on the ground showing up, and there are multiple swirls. You need to get out of those because you can really get yourself killed if you stand in those. And also for the rings, same thing with the orbs. I can slip through the cracks without getting hit by anything. And then I back up and I wait for the next one. And I stop my DPS just for a few seconds just to make sure that I'm not giving too much, work for the healers. And this is when I use my heroic leap. I use that to get to the ad that spawns, the slow ad that spawns. And because I know he's not going anywhere, I'm not affecting the boss at all, and I can get out there quick and use my my interrupt. But other than that, it's a lot of movement in that fight for melee. It doesn't look like it should be, but it is. So you're constantly having to move. And that's why I just like to sit in the back. That way I can keep my movement to a minimum.
And when the blue balls come out for you, what's your strategy on that?
Well, if I'm behind the boss and at that outer ring, I can just move sideways, get through that first ring, back up, and I take some steps sideways and then go to the next ring. So if the third ring's coming out, that's the one I usually take a hit on, but not a full hit. I can usually move through that one pretty quickly. And you can heroic leap over those, but I don't do that on heroic. It's just not necessary.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of throws you a little bit far out of his hitbox.
Yeah, then I don't have it ready for the ad where I want it.
Yeah. Okay. Epistle, tanking. I know. So I'm going to let you kind of explain the cheese method a little bit on what you guys do. I know Durag does the majority of it, but I'm sure you understand the concept.
the basic idea anyways, but I want to pick up on what you just said about hitbox, because it really bugs me that we use the word hitbox when it's actually a hit circle. I always find
True.
that kind of bizarre. It's on the ground, because how I handle the fight really is around that circle, because as Lorelai's saying, you don't want to be moving too much because that's going to really cut down on the DPS. And so what the tanks tend to do is whenever we pick them up, in order to avoid the orange balls falling down or the blue balls coming in, as much as possible, we try to be like almost like a volume dial. We'll rotate one way, we'll rotate the other, but try not to move the boss at all. That way, melee don't have to kind of move in and out or adjust to try to accommodate for our changes, and so they can keep on hitting without too much difficulty. If you've been in an LFR where it moves around like crazy, that's just because the tank's too busy avoiding damage and not thinking about how it's affecting all the other players in the raid. So we tend to try to keep them nice and stable, not move unless we have to go out and get the big ad. But when that happens, though, it's just a straight out sprint to get there. The cheese method is kind of fun because one of our raiders figured this out from a raid they'd been on, which is where you allow him to stay in position and not interrupt the channeling that he's doing. It creates increasing damage over time, but if you've got heals well coordinated enough, which we do, to take turns doing AoE heals, like Tranquility, for example, it's possible when he's going to do one of these big hits to offset that damage at just the right time, keep everybody alive in the group, and then just hold out till the next one. Each wave gets larger and larger, and eventually you have to do an interrupt. But the longer you wait, you just sit there and there's no distractions. It's a straight up wail on the boss, tank and spank. And when we first started implementing that, it took a huge amount of time off the whole fight, because instead of interrupting him right away to avoid incoming damage, we managed that incoming damage and ended up dishing out a whole lot more ourselves as a result.
Yeah. And then one of the things, and I'm sure both ranged and melee can agree to this, you guys stack right on top of one another. So you get in as close as you can, stack it up nice and close so everybody in the raid stacks up. So the healers can, get you all in range, get those healing circles down, and throw their tranquilities out there. Yeah.
Yep, just get in tight and stack up and unload on the boss. It's actually it's kind of nice, because so often we have to run around and dodge things and stand in things and do other stuff, and so to have that where I get to just stand there and practice perfecting my rotation, it's kind of nice.
Pretend he's a target dummy.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So I think that's where we're going to stop. We're just going to do probably two bosses a week, because I want to get pretty detailed into it. So from those last two bosses, is there anything you guys thought of off the top of your head that you're like, oh, well, maybe we should mention that?
Nope.
No, I don't think
there's
so.
one little trick that we use all the time, but we just haven't said. Chronomatic anomaly. When you're clearing the room, you enter in, there's one bunch of trash, you clear it out. Sometimes the boss gets pulled. Usually not. People are good about that sort of thing. But it can be a real pain when we get to the second group, especially because of the knockbacks, that we end up accidentally pulling the boss and then we're really hooped. So what we've done as a habit now is if he's padding around, one of the tanks just grabs him and hauls him up the stairs, and he'll despawn and then come back in later, and it saves us a lot of grief.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, because when he respawns, he just stands in one spot and he stops marching around the room, which makes it easier. Yeah. Also helps. It also helps. I would actually recommend that most raid groups do that on purpose, just because it really helps for your countdown timers when you're gonna start off the raid for people pre-potting and stuff. When he's marching around the room, it's a little bit harder to get those pre-pots timed up exactly right. So I'd actually recommend most raid groups reset him by running him up the stairs before they start that fight.
Unless your tanks have an impeccable sense of timing.
Right.
Which our thoughtful tanks definitely do.
There you go.
I was thinking the whole time you were saying, and we just kind of do it as a volume knob, and we're just really conscious about our melee, and we want to make it nice for them. And I'm like, oh, what a thoughtful tank.
No, I want that boss down. What do you think?
Yeah, we're on our own. We got to figure that out.
Mad loots.
Nice. All right. Well, that's awesome. And I want to thank Mac from the Goblin Goldcast for giving me that idea. So we'll try to hit a couple of bosses each week. And this is where I'm going to see if he's really paying attention to our podcast. So what we're going to do, Dex and Mac, we raid every Friday and Saturday night. So you send me an email. We're inviting you to join our raid group for the one night or both nights if you'd like. But we'd like both of you to come on a Friday night or a Saturday night. Now, Friday nights are a little easier because we start off with doing 2 bosses in normal and then we go to heroic. But if you guys take the challenge and want to come with us, we will even knock it back to normal if that's where you guys are at on your gear levels, because I don't know where you're at, and run a normal for you. But there's the challenge. You guys get a hold of me at Lions Pride Tavern at yahoo.com, or go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Lions Pride Tavern, and there's a email us. Those both go directly to me, and you guys let us know. We raid at your time. Well, one's in Alaska, the other's in California. So the California time, because I'm not sure where Alaska is at in the time zone, we like to get everybody there at your time, 5:30. So, but right. We can talk about that if you email me. So, so yeah, guys from the Goblin Goldcast, we'd love to have you with us. Instead of just interviewing you, we'll do it live stream, because we live stream our Friday and Saturday night raves. So, you can plug your Goblin Goldcast during that time and come raid with us, and we'll see how well you do. And then we'll both have something to talk about next podcast.
Or if your team's really awful, we'll gear you up.
Yeah, there you go. All right, and then to the rest of our fans, definitely go to our Facebook page. We got a thing on there where we'll announce your name on our podcast. It's just a $5 charge, just to give us a little money so we can pay for all this good fun, because we got to pay for storage and bandwidth and all this stuff for our podcast. So it's coming out of our pockets, which we don't have a problem doing, but it would be nice to have a little support. And I'm not going to go through setting up a Patreon page and all that. So just, do this. We'll announce your name on the air. It's $5. You'll see it on the Facebook page. It's pretty cool. Less than a cheeseburger. I think I said that last time.
It's cooler than having somebody, yell your name out at a Starbucks, and it's about the same amount of money.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So I was at the grocery store today, and my daughter goes, "Can I go get a Starbucks?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, here's $1."
Ouch.
She's like, "No, it's like $6." I'm like, "Oh man, that's a latte money."
Yes, it is.
That's a latte money.
That's a dad pun.
Oh, ding! Bada boom. All right, it's time. Let's cue that music for Lorelei's Pet Battle Minute.
Howdy, howdy. Today, I would like to mention 2 pets that you can find right here in Dalaran. The first is Nethera's Light, and this is a non-battle pet, which can be found in multiple places around Dalaran. I found one by the old forge area, but check out all the buildings in the commerce area. It can show up anywhere. It looks like a tiny floating candle, but it's unlit at the time. So what you do, when you find it, you dismount. Make sure you're dismounted, otherwise this will not work. Walk up to it, make sure you're in line of sight, and then do /cheer multiple times. If you're doing it right, eventually, and it's a random count, you could happen once, it could happen 7 times. The candle will light up, and then you'll get a message, and that candle will be yours. And this candle is actually named after the community moderator that helps answer the questions posed by players on the BattleNet forums. So do that, and you'll get your little candle. I had not known about that until Theo told me about that one. The second pet is the Dust Bunny, and Donabelle mentioned this on the Facebook page. And you're not looking for a bunny. The first time I tried this, I ran all around Dalaran looking for a rabbit, and it wasn't there. What you have to do, and again, this spawns in multiple places in the game, you look for a dusty rug, and it will sparkle, just like everything else in WoW that's important. I found mine in the pet shop, but you can also find it inside the barber shop, behind the statue, in the Greymane Enclave, on the 2nd floor of the Ledger Domain Lounge, and next to the Filthy Animal Inn. Now what you do here is you click on the rug and you will get a buff called spring cleaning buff. Then head out into the streets and you'll see dust bunnies everywhere. So have your hunting team ready, and when you click on a bunny, you will actually have to battle for it. And then you will have another pet, and it's no cost, no effort. Just looking for the rug might take you some time. There's only one rug up at a time, but it spawns rather quickly. And that's your pet battle minute for today.
Awesome. And next up,
Getting Deeps with Joe.
Today's Getting Deeps is all about being prepared. Raiding is a group effort, but making sure you're prepared to help your group succeed is part of the process. So here's a list of things that you, as a raider, should have prepared before the raid begins. 1. Get your bonus roll tokens from Dalaran and or your class hall. 2. Make sure you have plenty of potions to use during the fights. 3. Have enough flasks to last you through the entire raid. 4. Bring along some Tomes of the Tranquil Mind to change talents as needed for different fights. 5. Have some food with buffs appropriate for your class and spec. Raid leaders often provide food, but bring some of your own just in case. 6. Get a Vantis rune for whatever progression boss your group is currently working on. Ask your raid leader if you're not sure which to get. 7. Bring healing potions so you can heal yourself at key moments. 8. Make sure your gear is gemmed and enchanted. 9. Don't go into battle with holes in your armor. Repair your gear. 10. Make some space in your bags for loot you gain along the way. 11. Last but certainly not least, do some research into the fights you'll be doing. Not only will it help you be more prepared, but you might notice something that would be useful to bring to the table when your raid group is trying to fine-tune their strategy. If you do all of those things, you will be a well-prepared raider. You will perform better in your raid. You will feel good knowing that you did all you can to prepare for the raid. You will help your raid save precious time. Your raid leaders and your fellow raiders will notice that, and it will go a long ways towards showing that you're doing the best you can to help your raid succeed. So get prepared, be ready, and keep getting those deeps.
and next up is Epistle.
Welcome to Come At Me, a tanking minute. Well, this ties very well into Jobui's piece today because I'm talking about tanking fast, but not furious. If you're prepared, you're ready for a tank who is going to pull you screaming through an instance. It's really important for a tank to be able to set a pace. Some groups like to go casually and slow. Some like to go at a steady pace. Some like to run extremely fast. And it also depends on things like your gearing level and how well you actually can handle the situation that you get into. For example, if I'm ever running in an instance and it's not a Mythic 2 or 3, it's very easy with my current gearing level to be able to pull multiple mobs and move very quickly and not have to worry that we're going to have any kinds of crises. So you got to be setting the pace according to what you have and what you're able to do. So my motto is always make the group sweat just a little bit. It's fast, but don't make them furious at you. So a few things you need to be able to do. You need to be able to maintain the aggro. So it's possible, or rather, if it's possible, you want to be able to get aggro on all the mobs and move to a second, or in some cases third, or in some cases pull all the way to the boss, depending on the instance. If I was doing normal, I'd have no problem doing that at this stage. As long as you can maintain the aggro and people aren't going to be having mobs pulled off and eating your healers, I think it's fine to move as quick as you can. If you can line of sight the casters that are in the group so that they are running after you, so much the better. My rule of thumb is if as a tank you can survive for more than 20 seconds without using any CDs, because it's so below your gear level, by all means pull a group, pull a next group. Those DPS who have great AoE will make that instance go so much the faster. I always figure too, you should have the rest of the group just a few seconds behind so that they're having to run a little to catch up. A couple reasons for that. One is sometimes you get overzealous DPS who might say do some kind of multiple mob hit and pull a bunch of things in, and then you're fighting to catch up. If you're always just a little bit ahead, that gives you that second to catch them up before that ever happens. Another reason that you want to do that, that you want to be ahead, is that you get people a sense that they need to move. They're not sitting around talking, twiddling their thumbs, looking in their bags for I don't know, cooking ingredients or whatever it is DPS do when they're bored. You don't want to be creating that sort of situation. You want people to be moving and ready to go. So ideally, I would say in a raid situation, as soon as you get the go ahead as a tank, it's a non-stop pull to the boss. You pull one mob, clear it, get to the next, and really have your pathing clear in your head so you know which groups you're going to get between there and the boss. The more people have done it, the more you get a group that's familiar with a raid or familiar with working together, of course, the more you can do that quickly. But there's always something to be learned. For example, last week I went into a Blackrock hold myself, soloing for a quest. Normal was not too hard to do nowadays. And I discovered, just because I felt like trying it, there are a couple of groups that you don't even have to pull before getting to get yourself through the instance. A couple that I thought were kind of required, but no, there were some workarounds. I wouldn't have been able to do that with a group that I didn't know well, but now I have a faster route to go through. Now it depends. If you're at the random, you don't know the people, you don't want to create a crisis for them, you don't want them to be furious, you just want them to move faster. If you start to lose people, if they start pulling random mobs, if they can't keep up, then clearly you are moving too quickly for the group, and it's courtesy to slow down and give them that room to be able to catch up, or even explain that you're not going to pull one particular group of mobs. If they, stick to the right or stick to the left, they can avoid them. It's always good for people to figure that out and learn. I've been with too many people when I haven't been tanking who have just assumed you know everything, and that's a very frustrating experience. You don't want to be creating that kind of irritation. So finally, the thing I really enjoy doing is using my speed boost on my mount. As soon as I get the go-ahead to pull, or if I'm in a small group doing it myself, I hit my Divine Steed button, get myself right up ahead, and start pulling those mobs right away before anyone else can get anywhere near it to touching them. Sort of sets the message that you're moving, you're setting a pace, and keep on going as quick as you can. And that's Come At Me, a Tanking Minute.
Very cool. All right. WFN News, Warcraft Fafford News. WoW tokens. WoW tokens have reached an all-time high on all servers. The average on the US server right now is over 114K for one token. But the EU's got us beat. They're at 212.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Oh, but it keeps going up. China's almost at 400K. Korea's at 350, and Taiwan's, they're just a little bit ahead of EU with 260,000 per token. So, yeah, those and boy, I tell you, I've been waiting for them to come down. So if you're using those tokens, because now the new tokens you can use to actually, if you buy a token and then you sell it for your gold, then you can turn around and use that token, not just for paying for WoW anymore, but you can also use it at the Battle Pet store. You can use it for StarCraft or whatever you want to use it for. So that's a pretty cool thing. But man, have those prices skyrocketed. We thought maybe they'd start coming back down after they announced that, but, the Blizzard bucks, but it doesn't seem like it. All right, and this week coming up, is the command center out on the Broken Shores. And the command center this week, you've got the Forces of the Order, which basically provide you with support, stuff like that in whatever you're doing, whether it be the Cathedral World Quest, Legion Fall reinforcements, or the challenge missions. But also heavily augmented. That's a good one. So completing World Quest this next week will grant you a defiled a chance. I shouldn't say it grants you. It gives you a chance to get a defiled augment rune with each World Quest you complete. So this week, go out and get those World Quests done. Get those augment runes so you can help out in your raid. And the weekly quest this week is Time Walking Dungeons. And they are from the Cataclysm Dungeons. So if you like the Cataclysm Dungeons, get out there and get those done. You got to do 5 of them. Last, those Sporgar, they're holding their annual Mushroom Festival. Far out, man. The Glowcap Festival is out in Zangermarsh starting on Saturday. So you got the week to worry about it, and then go out to that Mushroom Festival, man. Tried to do my best Cheech and Chong there, and it just didn't work.
That
We're mellowing
festival's
with
only
you.
one day.
Yep. It's only one day.
You know what I was wondering about? What the prices for those runes we were talking about are going for. I'm noticing they're somewhere around almost 400 gold now per.
Augment runes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blizzard has not been generous with those this time around.
No, they haven't.
I gave a stack away the other day, and then I looked at the price and thought, wait a minute, that's a pretty generous thing to give away to somebody.
I think we're just going to call it a podcast right there, guys. So thanks for coming. You listeners, thanks for listening. And Goblin Goldcast, come to our raid.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
See you next week.
If you like this podcast, throw us a like and subscribe to our channel. And please, leave comments or questions below. Maybe we'll answer them on the air next podcast. We are hosted on Podomatic.com. Our website is lionspridetavern.podomatic.com. Our podcast also airs on iTunes for Apple users, Google Play for Androids, and YouTube. Just search World of Warcraft Lions Pride Tavern podcast. See you next week, and thanks for listening.